Hey there, today we're going to tackle a tool that's on pretty much every computer, but let's be honest, can look a little scary, Excel. But don't worry, the goal here is simple. We're going to make it all make sense. So let's just jump right in.
So, have you ever opened up Excel and just been hit with this? Yeah, that endless grid of boxes. If you have, you are definitely not alone. It can seriously look like some kind of digital maze. But trust me, by the end of our little tour, you're going to see it more like a map. We're about to break it all down.
Okay, so before we even get into Excel itself, let's just talk about the basic idea here. What is a spreadsheet? Well, you can think of it like a super-powered piece of digital graph paper. Seriously. It's just a file made up of a grid, rows and columns, and it's built to do three things incredibly well. Organize your stuff, calculate things, and analyze all that data.
All right, so with that in mind, let's get a little more specific. What exactly is Excel? And why is it basically everywhere?
Well, to put it simply, Excel is the world's most popular spreadsheet program, and it's made by Microsoft. And people use it for, well, everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, from a simple shopping list at home to these crazy complex financial models for huge companies. But here's the main thing to remember. At its heart, Excel is all about turning a bunch of raw numbers and data into something that actually makes sense, into real insights.
Okay, so if you're thinking about getting Excel, you've basically got two main paths. First, there's Microsoft 365. That's a subscription, so you pay a monthly fee. The upside? You get all the latest updates constantly. And you can install it on up to 5 different devices. The other option is to buy a standalone version, like Excel 2021. You just pay for it once, and you own it forever. The catch is, you only get to install it on one computer, and it doesn't get all the new feature updates they release later on.
Okay, now that we know what it is, let's actually take a look around. We're going to do a quick tour of the main screen. Think of it as your digital dashboard, just so you know where everything is.
So, the first thing you'll see right up at the top is this big area with all the buttons and menus. That's called the ribbon. And honestly, the best way to think of it is as your command center. All the tools you could ever need are right here, and they're organized into these different tabs. You've got the Home tab for all your day-to-day stuff, and then you've got tabs like Insert for when you want to add things like charts or pictures.
Right underneath that ribbon, there's this little bar that is super important. It's the formula bar. And here's why it's so key. A cell on your sheet might show you a number, right? Like it might say $19. But if you look up at the formula bar, it'll show you the actual stuff inside that cell, maybe the formula that added up to that $19. It's kind of like the behind-the-scenes view.
And then, of course, you have the main event, the worksheet itself. This big grid is where all your data actually lives. And the way it's set up is just so simple but brilliant. You got columns going across the top, labeled with letters, A, B, C, and so on. And then you have rows going down the side, labeled with numbers, 1, 2, 3. So because of this grid system, every single one of these little boxes, we call them cells, gets its own unique address. We call it a cell reference, and it's super simple. It's just the column letter followed by the row number. So for example, the cell that's in column H and row 8 is just H8. And this idea, this simple address system, is pretty much the foundation for everything else in Excel. All right, so now let's see how all these basic parts come together to do something really, really powerful. We're heading into what I like to call the engine room of Excel. This is where the real magic happens, formulas.
So, formulas are what take your spreadsheet from just being a static grid of information and turn it into a dynamic living calculator. And if there is one rule, just one rule you remember from this, make it this one. Every single formula in Excel always starts with an equal sign. Always. That little equals is the signal you're giving Excel that says, hey, get ready to calculate something.
All right, let's actually see this work with a super simple example. Imagine we've got a little table here for a daily budget. We have coffee for $4, lunch for $12, and a snack for $3. We've got the items, we've got the costs, but that total cell is empty.
So, how do we get the total without pulling out a calculator? Well, simple. We're going to let Excel do all the heavy lifting for us by using a formula.
Okay, so watch how easy this is. In the cell where we want the total to show up, you just start by typing equals sum. That's SUM with an open parentheses. Then you just take your mouse and click and drag to select the numbers you want to add. And finally, you just close the parentheses and hit enter. That's literally it.
And boom, just like that, Excel instantly does the math and spits out the total for you. No adding it up in your head, no room for mistakes. It just works. Okay, but this is the really cool part. This is the actual magic of Excel. If you go back and change one of those numbers, Like, say you splurged and your lunch was actually $15 instead of $12. Watch what happens. The total updates all by itself automatically. You never have to do the math again. That right there, that's the game changer.
All right, so let's do a super quick review of what we just covered. First, Excel organizes everything in a grid of cells. All your tools, they're up in the ribbon. Every single cell has its own unique address, which we call its cell reference. And the most powerful part, formulas, which always start with that equal sign. They're what does all the calculating for you.
So that just leaves me with one last question for you. Now that you've seen how a super simple formula like sum can add things up in an instant, what kind of problems in your own life or in your work could you solve with just a single formula?